us through this story.
Thank you. Thank you, Izzy. JP, hi. Hello, everyone. Glad to see so many shining faces in the room, especially after lunch. We'll try to make it fun and easy. So we are here to talk about our AT&T story, our journey that we have been on for quite some time. It took us almost is a I would say 3-year journey. So over a period of time, what did we do? And I want to be very clear. It's a little bit redacted because there are so many numbers we just cannot share. But we will try to do our best to give you that story in the next 40 minutes. Okay? Anything you want to add, JP?
No. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. That's good enough. So,
okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Let's go. Well, again, I'll save you from the intros and agenda. Like I talked about, we're going to talk about this story and share some facts. Again, I didn't introduce myself. So this is Praveen Vemulapalli. I'm a director of technology. I'm also heading a network data platform, part of Chief Data Office at AT&T. To many other things. I love my life, just all of you, right? And work is one part of it, but I love hiking and I have a motorcycle. He didn't believe I had a motorcycle, but I do. I'm an avid rider, mostly the adventure side. It's fun, so. And data and technology is also my passion space. I've been in the BI space and evolved into data science and eventually into data platform and AI platforms. Well, that's me. And I guess we'll go to the next one. JP.
So, my name is Jagadishan Pugasanthi. People call me JP. I'm a big sports enthusiast. Warrior fan, 49ers fan, whoever it is. Anybody 49ers fan over here? So big time Warriors fan. So outdoor camping, I love pretty much not enough camping. So technology addict. And other things are, one of the things I do enjoy is troubleshooting. That's one of my core strengths and stuff. Worked at AT&T CDO as a lead big data engineer. Prior to that, worked with Motorola, Google, and also HP Enterprise Services. That's my background.
Good. All right. So let's get to the basics. So I do wanted to start with this, why? How did all this even start, right? And somebody said, why are you going back to basics? Yeah, you have to go back to basics sometimes, right? This whole cloud thing started, just about back in, so the story that we're trying to build here starts back in 2016, 17, right? When cloud was already there, right? But was it there enough to bring us the right, cost effectiveness? Was it there enough to kind of manage our workloads effectively? Was the security enough for the companies like us, right? The trust factor was like an element, right, of surprise. But at the end of the day, yes, we have to get aligned. So we did work with a lot of big cloud providers, and we put our security rules right on the table. We negotiated, like most of you guys have done it, I'm sure. These are the 10 things I need for sure. And then obviously, it was a period of time, like I said, if you go back to 2016, 15, it was little, I should not say, it's not at the maturity level that it is today. So at the end of the day, we made a strategic decision as a company to kind of optimize and take our workloads into the cloud. We have a heavy investment on premise, have a huge, we have huge set of data centers that we own and operate. So it actually made a business sense for us to move to the cloud, not only from the cost perspective, but also to innovate faster in the cloud, right? Come on, how many of you have really struggled where if you want to set up a new server on premise, it would just take 6 months or 4 months minimum, right? I'm sure, come on, I see a lot of nodding. Yeah, absolutely. So before when cloud came in, it was like, oh yeah, you can spin it so fast, you can spin it, scale up, scale down. But then the issue was true, right? It's the real fact. To spin up a GPU machine to do a deep learning, oh Lord, it's almost like a year, right? You're going buying hardware, putting Tesla, GPUs in the cards. Oh, it was a nightmare. So it was right time for us that the leadership made the right decision saying, okay, let's just move to be more cost effective, but also be more efficient in the cloud, right? So it was the right move. So you want to add something here?
No, it's,
Okay.
we have a lot of slides to cover.
So yeah, the group is patient enough here. So I'm trying to cover the basics because a lot of you will relate to it. Then it's also public that AT&T chose Microsoft to be our partner, where we wanted to move a lot of our data workloads and AI workloads. So at this point, we chose the cloud, we chose Microsoft, to be our data, target when it comes to the cloud providers. Then switching, and going forward is like, okay, now we are in the cloud. Now what next, right? We have a huge Hadoop footprint. We're going to talk in the later slides. JP is going to walk us through the detailed footprint of our Hadoop ecosystem itself. It's massive, right? Massive when it compares to the volume, the variety, and you can just go on and on. But at that time, again, this is going back into 2015, 16, 17 timeframe. We were working with major cloud service providers, just taking a platform that does the data ingestion, does the data transformation, and creates these data aggregates. Just all these three functions to be able to migrate, we would end up picking up 5 or 6 technologies to build that small pipeline, right? Because there was no one tool that could manage small workloads, big workloads, variety of workloads. So there was this challenge. I mean, I'm sure at that time you all have gone through that same phase, right? So we spent a lot of time doing RFPs and proof of concepts with a lot of vendors in the market in that time. And at that time, we want to be using more native products, right? Because obviously when you are using a cloud service provider, you want to stay close to using their native services, right? Cloud native services. But then that's how we started the journey. But at that time, given the security, given the complexity of different type of workloads we had, Databricks kind of fell into that bucket to at least start our journey, right? So we started our journey like that. We picked the product and said, okay, at that time we also were migrating SaaS analytics platform, which was like, hey, one-shop stop, advanced analytics, ingest, transform, build your models. So we were trying to we started our journey with that, and then Databricks kind of fit into that space well at that point of time, right? So that's how everything started. So we picked the product, and we said, hey, let's just go with it, right? May not be perfect back in 2017, but at least it had many of the things that the other providers and services didn't have. So that's how we landed in Databricks. Anything you want to add here?
No, actually, so
Okay.
I'm saying you got to rush up a little bit.
Okay, so now we are in Databricks. So here's what we did, right? So our footprint of users is very large. We'll talk about it in details, but we have close to 70,000 data and BI and AI users. It's a very big community of analytics community and data science community. So how do you take a new technology in the cloud, and how do you educate all of these users to migrate and adopt that new technology in the cloud, right? So think of the time where all the users are used to using Toad, connecting to ODBC, JDBC, building, using tools like SAS and other things. It's a journey, right? So, and then all of a sudden you're saying, okay, now log into a browser and do all these things you were doing, right? So it was a journey. So what we did is our leadership team actually came up with this plan saying, okay, let's just start building these center of excellences, right? So that is how we came up with a data and AI platform center of excellence. We created these center of excellences for many technologies in the cloud, but I'm going to quickly walk you through what did we do specifically for Databricks, right? So at that time, we had the partnership created, and then we worked on creating the center of excellence for Databricks, right? So these are the 3 major pillars, right? First, we said, hey, center of excellence is a very wide word, right? It has its own meaning all the time. So let's put a structure to it. So we said it's going to be a cross-functional community. In the company, we created a small community where we had experts and lead architects like ourselves and JP, part of that community. We have partners from Databricks to be part of it. We have partners from Microsoft part of it. And we also have all these users across the business, part of being a small community, right? So we use Microsoft Teams. So honestly, that's just how we started, saying, hey, let's just create a small Teams group and channel. Let's start asking questions, right? So we created this format, we structured it so well, and we said, look, you have any questions, this is where you get the answers from. So we created this whole idea of transparency, right? If you look at that, right, governance, we added information into that saying, okay, I told you we have a wide variety of users. We have close to 60 plus business units who are individual business operating units working on the data all the time, right? So we had to bring all these partners together, and we said, look, if you have questions, this is the team. So we said this is the dedicated team from Databricks. These are the solution architects. These are the architects from AT&T, and this is how you communicate. We have their emails, photos, and everything, right? Back then it was like, oh, you had to, the only way you could find out the answers is to talk to somebody who knew, who could talk to somebody else who knew. So, so we were trying to bring that whole data stewardship and technology stewardship into one common area, right? So like I said, I'm not going to drain through this, but as you can see, we brought all the information. It's super clarity. If you're an AT&T employee, you know how many licenses we have, you know how much compute we use, and you know who's the leadership team who's driving the Databricks usage. You know how the security patterns are built. It's all transparent. So I would say 3 years ago we started this journey with about 6 people. Like I said, this is a voluntary and it's a cross-functional community. This is not one team. The one that is at the bottom right-hand side is very important. So this is not a dedicated team saying, oh, this is the team that goes and does all this. No, this is a cross-functional team. So the alignment had to be drawn between all these business unit leaders and everybody. It started with 6 people, and then it became 60, and now we have about almost 3,000 to 4,000 people in the community actively asking questions. Right? So this is our channel to communicate with our users back and forth.
So one of the things I want to add is because of AT&T being a large corporation, the skill sets are varying, varies widely. There are people who are very skilled to people who are just coming from completely a different world. So it's important that we actually address all of their concerns. One of the things what the COE does is introduce best practices and gets them actually, everybody be aware of it. And we're sharing because there is a real cost in the cloud, no more physical data center, and then they can escape with bad coding practices and stuff. So there is actually emphasis placed on that, so continuously, and it's an iterative process. And there is constant focus on people to say, okay, these are the best practices. You got to get engaged. And there's training, and always we coordinate with Databricks RSAs as well. So that's an area that we have improved considerably.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, good point on that. Yeah, like I said, we are 90,000 users, so it's a wide variety of experiences, and constantly hiring, new people are coming in. So this is like that, no more black box communication, no more black box architectures, right? So this was one of the key factors for our success. So we formed a community, and then, okay, now let's talk about usage, right? So we said, okay, look, we are huge. The data sets that we deal with, the amount of volume of data we are processing, the amount of users, BI users, almost like 80, hundreds of thousands of users across the board from different, business units, mostly self-serving their own capabilities. So that's when we said, okay, when we are starting to build this environments, how do we build it, right? I've spoken to a few in the morning about this. Like I said, this is quite a journey, right? So it started from, now I'm talking about 18. At this point, I'm almost at 2018, 17, that time frame. Then we said, okay, let's just spin up one workspace, and let's put all the users there, and then that's just how we started to look at it. But then you could just imagine, and this is Azure Databricks, so Databricks in Azure, right? So, and we started saying, okay, let's just build one, and then let's start migrating our workloads. We've essentially hit every limit you can imagine. When it comes to API calls, compute engines, the number of private link environments we were creating, we just hit every limit we could hit. So it was a true partnership between AT&T, Microsoft, and Databricks to be able to start evolving the product, to be able to support all the different variety of use cases we had. So at the end of the day, we said, okay, look, let's just organize ourselves, and let's not create these siloed platforms. So the whole idea is to build that single version of truth. that a lot of companies are working towards single version of data products. But again, before you even build a product, do we have the platforms in a cohesive fashion, right? You can't have like 5 ETL technologies or 5 different technologies of databases and then ask for a single data product, right? So that is where we spend a lot of time, and it made strategic sense for us from the usage perspective. We can share a lot of information, off the call or maybe in Q&As. We've spent a lot of time here, right, JP?
Okay, yeah, let's go.
A lot of time coming, creating different user groups. We came up with tagging customers. Like, how do you tag like 5 people in a group, and how do you tag and see how much they're spending, and a lot of that stuff. And then moving on, he's good. He's good at moving slides. So
You got time.
this was one thing, right? So as you can imagine, right? So now we not only talked about the platform and so forth, now we have a platform. Now we have users on the platform. So we are at that maturity curve where now it's all about optimization, right? When you're spending XYZ amount of dollars on a cloud and it keeps increasing based on the workloads you're migrating, right? So that is when it becomes very important. So again, this is towards the context of Microsoft Azure implementation. So what we did is we went in back directly to Microsoft. We looked at all the, if you guys know, right, there is software and compute components when you deploy Databricks in Azure. So we kind of brought everything together. It's like, okay, this is the Databricks compute, and this is the DBU software type compute, and this is the compute for running the hardware behind it. So we brought everything together, built a lot of TCOs. We created tagging. But again, one thing I want to say is, as we were building and working on these capabilities, it was an evolution, right? It was an evolution for us. it was an evolution for Microsoft and Databricks. And like I said, it was a true partnership that came along here. We found a lot of facts while we were building these out, right? There was a time where you could only find out the cost at the workspace level. I mean, then it's a black box. Then we decoded the black box. Then we went to okay, let's go tell me compute level cost. Then now we are almost at a stage where we're asking, okay, tell me user level cost. Like if Praveen is going and doing something, how much is he spending? Right? What type of compute is he leveraging? So we are at that phase, and then this cost dashboard really helps out. Happy to help. We can have offline discussion about this. I'm sure the RSA team will also help you out. We also have Databricks, what's the watch?
Overwatch.
Overwatch. So there's also Overwatch capabilities. But again, I found you should always have 2 things to compare, right? So this is a Power BI dashboard. So we built it in Power BI, only for executives. But we have many versions, one for the operations team, one for the platform teams. Because operations guys, they will care about what type of compute. If you're an executive, you'll care about how much by which business unit. And sorry, we had to redact all that dollars there, but I'm sure it makes sense.
So one of the most important critical elements is you have the breakdown in this Power BI slide. If you look at the virtual machine cost on Azure Databricks, that's a DBU cost. You can, if you actually tag the clusters, you can actually individually see who is the owner of the cluster, and you can have that kind of a breakdown. That's what it does, actually.
Yeah, good
it
point.
does really, when you actually have shared environments across multiple business units or entities, this is one of the ways you can look at it based on the tag, and you can say whether you got a chargeback or a showback model. This really helps you rein in, actually. If they're actually using more resources than they need to be using, you can actually say, yes, you're overrunning the budget and stuff. So it really is helpful.
Great point. I mean, like I said, everyone is in different phase of their journeys. Once you're in, trust me, this is the most critical thing you will start looking at. So again, there are varieties of dashboards you can build to customize to your leadership and for your teams. Another thing I want to talk about, again, just a quick flyby is when you're in public cloud, you have a public service, right? And then when you take that service into your environment and build a custom private environment for yourself, and we are a huge private link shop, so everything needs to be in private link. That's like the core foundation. So then we said, hey, we are getting a lot of new customers, new users, users, architects, platform administrators. So then that's how, as part of the Center of Excellence, we also started to build these documentations around, okay, how have we implemented in AT&T, right? It's like, how do you take something that is public and make that private? How did we design the security around it and everything? So we created a lot of documentation. This is just one example. Pretty stringent so that there's no hoarding of information. That's the idea here, right? So it's all about democratizing the data, the platforms, and also information. So it's all there. You want to add something here?
Yeah. No, actually, we're going to be talking about it a little bit in depth as we're going in.
Yeah. Okay, and then, look, last but not least, as part of this journey, this is very important, right? We are dealing with public cloud services, right? This is a cloud native services. It's not like the traditional on-prem environments where version 1.2 runs for 2 years and then there is 1.1 for the next 2 years, right? There is a new version pretty much every other week, right? There is a new product feature coming out. So one of the things we have really worked, so AT&T we have our own T University. It's like the own education hub for AT&T for employees. So what we did is we worked with them and we created custom trainings for all the employees to take, right? And there is, this is like a little bit of gamification there. You do some trainings, it just tags onto your personal profiles. So we spend a lot of time there, and every time there is a new version, we try to update our training profiles so that all the employees and everybody working at AT&T are up to date, right? And then, like I said, there is also, so that is the setup part, and then we also spend a lot of time. The Center of Excellence team, even though I said cross-functional, one of the themes there is to communicate. It's okay, over-communicate, it's okay, because at the beginning, that's what you want, right? That's what builds the trust. So we did a lot of communication. We continuously do today, right? So every time there is a new feature coming up, or let's say a team has found out a new optimization in Delta Lake, right? We found out a new way of optimizing our jobs. So we kind of constantly socialize those things. And obviously, the Teams channel I talked about, it's a collaboration. So this is a closed loop. We constantly train, socialize, communicate. So we keep that chain all the time, right? Okay, now heading to the right meat of the collar, right? This is where rubber meets the road. JP will walk us through our environment and all the other stats that are, associated with it. JP.
So when we started off migrating to the cloud, one of the biggest challenge was we had several Hadoop clusters. One of the clusters, at least few of the clusters, were quite substantially large. If you look at the numbers, you could see that 50,000 jobs per day, closer to 22 million CPU core hours per month. And the biggest challenge was the kind of workloads that are being run on this Hadoop cluster. It has covered the entire gamut of the Hadoop ecosystem. If you look at, there are Spark jobs, there is MapReduce, there's people using Hive, HBase, there are people using Tez, Python, Java, everything actually. You're talking about entire, and then if you're talking about the infrastructure-wise, people are using Atlas, people are using Knox, and there's also Ranger for security enforcement as well. So if you look at all these things together, then what would be actually, we had the state-of-the-art Hadoop cluster as well. If you look at it, we had Hadoop actually, you always have traffic east-west. So which means you've got to have a low latency network. We did have that. The other part is you need to have a robust uplink capacity as well. We had 480 gigs of uplink capacity. With all of those things, we had actually, if you're talking about the servers, number of servers we had, closer to 1,000 servers with 48 cores to 56 cores minimum. And then every one of them actually had 256 gigs to 512 gigs of memory. So, exceptionally robust, large cluster. Now, you're talking about 13 petabytes of data here. So I'm setting the table to actually outline the enormity of the problem. So,
yeah. Okay.
So what is the motivation for modernizing Hadoop to Databricks? When in 2012, starting from that time period, when Hadoop was the buzzword, everybody wanted to run and actually install and have Hadoop in their premises. It provided a cost-effective way at that point of time to handle both structured as well as unstructured data at the time. So we didn't have anything equivalent at the time. You can use commodity hardware, and you could actually handle petabytes of storage or data. So it did. Everybody mushroomed. But at some point of time, Hadoop actually plateaued, meaning that we started having capacity issues. So adding, in a 1,000-node cluster, adding capacity was not an easy thing. Anything adding more to it was very incrementally beneficial, and was not, the investment was huge. Upgrading the Hadoop cluster was much more challenged. Any major HTTP or Hadoop upgrades was fraught with the risk of data loss, application compatibility issues, all of those things. So again, we were actually now what was supposed to be a technology that is cutting edge technology now had plateaued in our opinion. So modernizing was not an option, it was inevitable for us. So there's always a trade-off between data science and the production workloads. So data scientists had to back off sometimes. So it is a shared environment all the time. So all of these challenges that were continuously coming to us. And then also, and additionally, we had committed to the street that we'll reduce our operation expenses by millions of dollars. That's one of the things that we've done before. So data center by nature is capital intensive, right? So these are some of the driving factors. And Hadoop, if you look at Hadoop as a platform, it is no longer evolving or evolving marginally. It is a fat pipe. So let's go to the next one.
Good. And just to add one more thing, right? Like I said, some of this like reinforcement around it is, at the end of the day, we wanted to achieve a single version of data, right? And as you can imagine, we have petabytes of data sitting on multiple environments. So that was a true challenge, and which we were to move forward with. And again, as you can see, we took this opportunity to rationalize almost 30% of the data, which is a huge win when you look at this. The amount of jobs that you process that extra 30%, the amount of storage you save in that extra 30% is a huge saving. So we took this opportunity to kind of also clean up the data and all the redundancy, that was there, as an opportunity. I know there's a lot of text here, but I kept it so that you guys can have a look at it. And as you can see, there's a huge ROI in our case. So it made perfect business sense for us to move forward with this, right? Okay, let's hit the next one. You want to talk about?
So I think we can talk about it in detail, but we can go a little bit next slide and then come back.
Okay. Okay. We'll probably come back to this one. Just to give context, what is this, right? So this is where when I talked about we have the public cloud product and how did we bring that and make sure it worked for AT&T, right? We have a lot of federal and state obligations to meet, and we went through a stringent security analysis of building our workspaces. Again, this is back in the time, but again, a lot of work was just spent on this one. All right.
So we saw the enormity of our Hadoop cluster that we had, and that's one of the clusters we had. So now we had 13 petabytes of data. How do you take 13 petabytes of data to the cloud? That was a big challenge. And then what is the right platform, and what is the right data format? All of these things were challenges. 13 petabytes of data in Hadoop, if you try to copy or do a recursive LS, you know how name nodes respond. I mean, the cluster becomes unstable. The data has to be copied out of the platform at the same time maintaining the stability of the platform. That is a challenge. So we got to find a product that is Hadoop native as well as can support DFS API or Cloud API. So now that we have already identified Azure as a cloud, we chose ADLS because it supported hierarchical namespace, right? So we did that. So we actually went with Vandisco as a live data migrator because it was Hadoop native, and it was able to, it was not copying the data like if you do distcp, you can simply distcp. But 13 petabytes of data, distcp is just incredibly intrusive for the platform. So with that, when we started doing that, actually we can go to the next one, the cloud platform.
Yeah. Did you just say 30 petabytes?
13 petabytes.
13 petabytes using distcp into the cloud? Just imagine that.
We can't. It would just cause a humongous outage, actually.
You can take down your network.
We were looking at a platform which can do continuous data migration, incremental data migration, and also something that can do, ad hoc migration as well with no risk of no data loss. So LDM, actually, Vandisco LDM kind of was useful for us. So now what we did is we decided to have, starting from today or certain day, we decided to divvy up the data, call that historical data up to a certain point of time. So we actually broke the migration into two parts. Multi-years of data, we migrated as historical data using LDM. We had several regex written for that. And as the data was once the migration was completed, now we started doing that. Starting from that day onward, the last historical data migration onward, we made it current data sync. So there is continuous data sync until it caught up. So now we are actually, historical data migration is complete. Current data was converted or migrated to the cloud. Now, in the interim, there was also conversion going on in the cloud from ORC to Delta Lake. So I'll be talking about why we chose Delta Lake a little bit as well. So we have identified the data, actually the way to get the data into the cloud. We identified the platform. We also identified the data format as well. So we have started migrating and moving the data into the cloud, converting it as well. So.
Okay, good. And by the way, on the left-hand side, the circle is 6 km. That's our Hadoop environment. We just call it km. I should fix that. Okay, great. Thank you. And again, just to quickly kind of wrap up the scenarios here, right? Walk through the basics of how did we start our journey, and then how did we start building our center of excellences, and also talked about, how did we end up doing different phases of migrations. Want to share with you a very quick snapshot. I know a lot of text. I personally don't like it, but I thought I would share with the community here so that it gives you a context, right? So a lot of energy has gone to this, a lot of planning has happened. As you can imagine, right? It was just not lift and shift for us, right? We were supporting many variety of solutions. We were supporting billing systems. The data was supporting like front-end OSs, BSS systems, right? And it was used for a lot of data science, building churn models. And so we had to look at all these scenarios while we were migrating. And we used a lot of analysis and a lot of planning that had actually gone into this, rather than just the technical strength. There was a lot of planning that has happened here, right? I promised myself that I'm not going to read through the slide. It is just for you. If somebody wants to take photos, please do. But that's how we started. Again, we're happy to share any additional details, off the track. Share our experiences, any specific technical challenges or process challenges or people challenges. We're happy to talk about that. This is all we have for today.
So one other thing I wanted to tell you is, why did we choose Databricks? We had multiple products. We talked about it. So I thought if we had time, we can touch that. So we looked at it. We're coming from Hadoop world, open source. It's more closely aligned. We're talking about Spark. Many of the user codes are Spark-based. So it is more closely aligned. And even Spark, Python, Java, and variety of the coding methods we used, everything aligned with Databricks. And that's one of the reasons why I choose Databricks as a platform. And ability to scale was infinite. Coming from on-prem, being restricted, and going with the freehand with the ability to scale, auto-scale, and with elasticity, that is incredibly powerful for us. And then the support for an open data format as well. Delta Lake was an open data format. So these two elements are one of the clinching factors for us.
Yeah.
And there are other elements as well, cost of ownership, and then evaluation, and benchmarking we did as well. We can't reveal the numbers. So some of the reasons why we pivoted is because of the benchmarking we did, comparing with other coding practices or other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take